Oh, hello. For today's spooky selection, I'd like to talk about an artist whose contribution to the world of creepy music is undeniable. I'm talking about a guy who might as well be the Godfather of Goth. Jay Hawkins was born in Cleveland in 1929. His early life alone reads like fiction. Jay was put up for adoption at the age of 18 months and immediately taken in by a tribe of Blackfoot Indians. At the age of 13, Hawkins forged a birth certificate and joined the army, and they gave him a gun and shipped him off to the Pacific, where he fought in World War II. After that, he took up boxing and became the middleweight champion of Alaska in 1949. The guy did everything. And then he did the thing people know him for. Jay studied classical piano as a child, and he learned guitar after he got back from the war. In 1951, he joined guitarist Tiny Grimes' jazz band, and a couple years later, he released his first single as a solo act, a little blues number called Not Anymore. Jay had a huge voice. Early on in life, he'd idolized Paul Robeson and wanted to be an opera singer. He'd simply settled for the blues when those earlier plans failed to materialize. Jay would toil in relative obscurity in the blues scene, releasing singles here and there until one fateful night in September of 1956. Jay's in the studio with his band, and they were set to record what he called a refined love song, a blues ballad that he'd written. Then, according to Jay, that's when Arnold Maxson, the producer, brought in ribs and chicken and got everybody drunk. At some point, Jay got so fucked up that he blacked out. But that did not stop the recording session. The next morning, Jay Hawkins woke up with a bad hangover and a brand new, completely insane, drunken single called I Put a Spell on You. And suddenly, Screamin Jay Hawkins was born. When asked about the session, Jay himself said, quote, "I don't even remember making the record. Before, I was just a normal blues singer. I was just Jay Hawkins. It all just sort of fell into place. I found out I could do more destroying a song and screaming it to death." I Put a Spell on You contains a completely unhinged performance from Hawkins. He sounds like an absolute madman, and the song ends with Jay drunkenly grunting and making sexually suggestive noises that were deemed way too perverse by the establishment in Eisenhower's America. Even after they made a shorter version with less orgasming, many radio stations refused to play the song. And that controversy, of course, made it wildly popular. I Put a Spell on You would go on to sell over 1 million copies, to say nothing of the later versions by Nina Simone and Creedence Clearwater Revival. The song itself is spooky enough, but this isn't why we're calling Jay the Godfather of Goth. You see, one of the DJs that would play Hawkins' record was the soon-to-be ruined payola king of Cleveland radio, Alan Freed, who booked Jay on the Rock and Roll Review live show that he used to throw around town. It was Freed who made the suggestion to Jay that he might gimmick up his stage show to match the eerie and manic energy of I Put a Spell on You. So the first night of the show, Jay put on a black Dracula cape and began the show by jumping out of a smoke-filled coffin. This caused the crowd to literally start screaming, so despite the fact that he was claustrophobic, Jay Hawkins would do the coffin routine every night for the rest of his career. Jay always had a lot of props and costume changes with him on stage, too. That included a smoking skull on a stick, capes, leopard print jumpsuits. Essentially, Jay's routine became freaking out the squares by acting like an insane voodoo man. All this is quite the act of subversion for a black man in 1950s America when you think about it. Seriously, how much more of a shock rocker can you be? Not surprisingly, the list of artists who cite Screamin Jay as a major influence are a who's who of exactly who you'd expect. Alice Cooper, Ozzy Osbourne, Glenn Danzig, Marilyn Manson, The Cramps, Tom Waits, David Bowie, Brian Ferry, all the musicians known for being shape-shifting weirdos who live to shock and outrage unsuspecting old heads. And I like to think they owe it all to the Godfather of Goth, Screamin Jay Hawkins, and his absolutely unforgettable classic that no one actually remembers recording, I Put a Spell on You.